Hey, PC World fans, Adam here with Gordon. And at CES 2022, both Intel and AMD came out with new laptop CPU families. On the Intel side, you have the 12th gen Alder Lake series. On the AMD side, you have the Ryzen 6000 series. Now, obviously, we don't have review units in hand. We don't have final testing, but I still think there is some good information to glean from the information that has been provided. Because, hey, maybe you're like me. Maybe you have a laptop that's a little long in the tooth that you want to upgrade to. So getting some of this information out now before you make some of those buying decisions, I think is going to be valuable. Obviously, you'll have to wait for final reviews, but let's start at the top. Gordon, walk me through the different CPU families.
Sure. We have two really big developments. AMD pushing out new Zen 3 Plus, Ryzen 6000, improved 6 nanometer technology process, new RDNA 2 graphics cores, a lot of enhancements for power, still limited to 8 cores. Intel is, of course, bringing its 12th gen Alder Lake Intel laptops. These, of course, use a hybrid configuration where you're getting some performance cores mixed with efficiency cores. And so to surprise everybody, the Alder Lake desktop parts were really, really good CPUs. We're seeing those in desktops now, or we're seeing those in laptops now. And the big change is this means we will see laptops with up to 14 cores. So that is, of course, 6 performance cores and 8 efficiency cores going up against AMD with 8 new Ryzen 6000 using the Zen 3 Plus cores tuned for efficiency. It's going to be a massive battle. These don't make old laptops worthless, but I will tell you, both of these CPUs will be faster than what they're replacing.
And of course, you will be getting a lot of these laptops in for own testing. It's very laptop specific, how even sometimes the same part will perform different based off the model. So, definitely wait for full testing. But I think it is still kind of interesting to look at it from what we know now. So let's start at the high end. Let's start with like the monster fat gaming laptop,
right.
That kind of stuff. What can we expect up there?
Well, yeah, and of course, the good world we're in, I would count a monster fat laptop with everything from this sort of like thin and light laptop, getting big CPUs, really big compared to a small laptop like that. But so we have Intel with its Core i9 12900 HK at the very top end. There's also a Core i7 12800 that also gives you 14 cores versus AMD with, say, its Ryzen 9 6980HX 8 cores, Ryzen 7 6800 8 cores as well. Again, like Adam said, we have to wait for actual reviews for people to actually get their hands on these laptops before we can pass final judgment. But I think on paper, I think in raw performance, in multi-threaded benchmarks, I'm going to give the edge to Intel. I would not have done this had we not seen the Intel desktop parts already. They are really spectacular. The efficiency cores are really, really fast, which surprised everybody. And when you're talking about 14 CPUs, even though some of them are efficiency cores, versus 8 cores, even though they are more efficient now than what we saw before, I'm generally my money, again, we're like Vegas, we're your bookies, we're telling you where to put the money. My money's on Intel winning raw performance on multi-threaded performance.
Okay, but what about gaming? Is that going to translate to gaming as well, which isn't going to use all those cores?
Yeah, and most games you don't need 14 cores to play games. I think for gaming, I think Intel might have a slight advantage. Those performance cores are really good. They are really good cores. It is possible that Ryzen 9 actually may be closer as well. But I think also people really need to remember for most gaming purposes, especially if you're running a 1440p laptop, high res or 4K, which a lot of people like to pair with, very nice gaming laptops, you are typically running to such GPU limited tasks. It really is not going to make a big difference. My money would probably be on Intel though, but I'm not sure because the one advantage AMD may have is its focus on power efficiency. So these Zen 3 Plus cores are basically the Zen 3 cores, excellent cores that we saw before. AMD says we went and really tuned these things to be super power efficient. That might mean they're able to push higher clocks than we saw out of previous Ryzens. It might mean, and also because Alder Lake can use a lot of power sometimes, it may end up being kind of a wash. So I'm going to lean toward Intel there. But again, as your Vegas bet maker, I would not guarantee you're going to win either way. Those odds are going to be way too close. Whereas with multi-threaded performance, generally going to give it to Intel as well as single-threaded performance. I do think Intel on single-threaded performance, Chrome, Photoshop, a lot of those, Office, a lot of the, PowerPoint, a lot of those things, Intel's performance cores, when they're not weighted down by having to run all the other cores, have a really decent advantage over AMD. So I think Intel will have the advantage in both those areas. But of course, power efficiency is going to go for AMD, and that actually may be the one wild card AMD plays this year. They may say like, hey, we can't give you a better multi-threaded performance score, and maybe we're a little slower in single-threaded performance, but when you unplug that laptop, because of the better efficiency of our CPU cores, we're going to be faster. And that may be the message AMD will push for 2022, which is honestly important for some people. They want battery performance on a high performance laptop.
You gotta have both.
You can have both. You gotta have both, right?
Okay, so what about the mid range, the thin and lights, the kind of 3, 4 up to 5 pounds, kind of like this, something that might have the thicker parts in it, but kind of prioritizes a little bit more on space and weight.
Yeah,
the Dell XPS 15s of the world.
Yeah, so when you get to XPS 15, you're going to be looking at say a Core i7 12800H. Again, you're still sort of looking at that thread advantage. You're still going to be able to get 14 cores. That's 6 performance cores, 8 efficiency cores. And then you're also going to be able to get, and for AMD, same thing, 8 cores, 16 threads, say like a Ryzen 7 6800H, if you were to put one of those in an XPS 15. As you do get to thinner, and an XPS 15 is even thinner than that Aero 15 there. It may again get a little closer than you expect because, if AMD can really pull it out with efficiency. I know you have the efficient cores for Intel, but AMD's all 8 core advantage with all efficiency core, with all performance cores that are more efficient might make it a lot closer. Generally though, whereas I can tell you in a 17-inch laptop, I'm going to Vegas. The odds are going to be very good that Intel's going to win that one all day in multi-threaded. Single-threaded too, probably. You get into a smaller laptop like that, might be a little closer because now you have sort of the thermals pushing down on Intel. So you're going to want to wait to see what frankly, Intel and Ryzen, Intel and AMD can show what their chips do in those more thermally limited platforms.
Okay, all right. Well, and then what about the real ultra portable thin and lights? The 13-inch laptops like you have here.
Yeah. So for AMD, you're going to have up to the Ryzen 7 6800U. That's going to give you 8 cores, 16 threads. Again, it's a Zen 3 Plus goodness. A lot of power efficiency stuff. For AMD, the first time they're going to have a 28-watt option. They did not have that before. That's going to be nice for them. But the problem for them is Intel has these new class of processors called the P class, I guess.
Which does not stand for performance.
No, it doesn't stand for performance. That might confuse you a little bit.
Yeah, it's not P cores. It's not all P cores.
So, for example, there's going to be a Core i7 1280p. That's going to have
1280p.
That's
not even HD.
1280p. That's going to have 6 performance cores, 8 efficiency cores. So that adds up to, by the way, 14 cores. And because performance cores also have hyperthreading, another 6 threads there. So that's 20 threads versus 16 threads. 14 cores, even though some are efficient, versus an 8-core Ryzen. My money, and again, these are also in 28 watts, and we are seeing, surprisingly, I did not expect it, but we were going to see like the Core i7 1280p class CPU in laptops like an XPS 13 Plus. New laptop, a little bit bigger, still really, really thin, but that's 28 watts, 14 cores of computing, and something this tiny, which is really, I think it's going to be, again, just like AMD at the high end, those 17-inch big, large laptop. It's going to be tough, I think, for 8 cores. Even if there's a power efficiency gain there, I think it's going to be tougher on AMD versus the 12th gen P series.
Well, but you're even more thermally constrained than the 4-pound laptop.
Right.
So
yeah, so we have to see how much the thermal headroom kind of holds down that Alder Lake part, how much AMD is really going to make up because of their more efficient process with the 6 nanometer and also the redesigned Zen 3 Plus stuff. But it's really hard to beat 14 cores with 8 cores, I think. And I normally, before I'd seen Alder Lake on desktop, I've seen 6-core Ryzen, versus 10-core Core i5 Alder Lake, and it's not pretty. So I think it may be bad there for multi-threaded performance. Single-threaded performance, closer. Generally, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference because they're both going to run pretty fast. So, but yeah, my money for general CPU performance, raw performance, probably going to lead toward Intel.
Wow. Okay. Well, the last question I have then, if you're in this space and you're looking to buy a laptop, maybe there's a good deal and you save a little money on the previous gen. How much of a bump do you think on both sides is this newer gen going to be? Do you think it's worth it to maybe look at a 11th gen Intel part or a Ryzen 5000?
I think it's hard to say because we haven't seen the parts, but my feeling is the previous Ryzen 5000, the 11th gen Tiger Lake laptops, they were fantastic laptops. Most people, honestly, if you have an 11th gen with a good GPU or a Ryzen 5000 with a good GPU, you're not hurting. You really don't.
But if you don't, maybe you just want to save a little bit of money. You're going into it. You got something real old.
You don't have to run out and upgrade if you haven't. But I think if you're looking like, well, I'm going to save some money by going with something a little older. Yeah, generally, it's worth it. It's probably going to be worth it. Even though I will tell you, when you're looking at sort of like on the Intel side of the aisle, you're looking at 14 cores, 12th gen, versus 11th gen with 8 cores. That's a lot more cores. I think some of the numbers I've heard batted around like 40% more performance possibly in multi-threaded tasks. So if you are buying your laptop for, say, doing 3D modeling, possibly for doing encoding where you're using all the CPUs, or frankly, if you're an Excel esports competitor, that's a real thing, I would recommend you wait and see. I would pay probably for a 12th gen. I want that core density if I really need those cores. The truth is most people and what most consumers do and what most gamers do, it's not going to change your world. These will be faster, yes.
They will be more efficient.
They will be more efficient, and you might even see say a Ryzen 6000 or a 12th gen is 25% faster in gaming than an 11th gen or Ryzen 5000. That sounds really like 20% sounds a lot, but if you're looking at 140 frames a second versus 115 or 118 frames a second, I don't know if I may want to take a $500 savings on that. And that may be very reasonable. One thing I do want to mention, though, is also the graphics on these.
Oh, yeah. So let's go over the graphics.
That's we have a couple big changes. For AMD, RDNA 2 is their latest and greatest graphics core. They are saying we are giving you double the gaming performance of Intel's previous 11th gen Iris Xe graphics core that you found in, say, the Core i7 1185 G7, the 1165 G7, very popular, fantastic GPU. Yeah. AMD saying we are now twice as fast as that.
Wow. That's big.
So yeah, they really are. They're making big claims, and it looks like that's probably going to put them in the front position because hey, clearly they've had graphics. Intel though, I'm not going to count out yet. My bet is on AMD for possibly giving you a thin and light laptop that will let you play new games at reasonable frame rates. And I don't mean 720p at 30 frames a second. I mean 1080p, maybe medium to low, depending on how new the game is. But you might be able to get legitimately 1080p gaming at frame rates you will actually want to play these games out of the new Ryzen 6000s. That's a really big plus for AMD. But I think a lot of that is because I don't know where Intel is positioning its new 12th gen parts. I do want to point out, though, the Core i7 1280p with its 14 core graphics, you're going to get 96 EUs, which is essentially the same EU count as what we got out of the previous G7 graphics. Those were great parts. Same EU. I don't know if they're improved EUs or how much more performance you're going to get out of it, but both platforms benefit from DDR5 and LPDDR5. So one of the things that holds back graphics performance is having more memory bandwidth. LPDDR5 and DDR5 give you way more memory bandwidth than you're going to get before. So compared to a G7, an RDNA 2 with DDR5 is definitely, I can see them hitting that 2x performance thing. That's not a surprise. Against a G7 with DDR5 though, or LPDDR5, I don't know if it's going to be quite the same delta, the difference between them. But I'm generally going to put my money, on AMD for graphics for IGP there, but I'm not counting out Intel yet. They haven't given it a name yet. You know, they haven't said whether it's Iris whatever name, but they're saying Iris Xe and that Core i7 1280p. And the other really kind of surprising thing is that high end, that sort of like Core i9 12900H, Core i7 1200H. Those are basically the, you know, sort of the CPUs you would traditionally find in these like 15, 17-inch heavier laptops. Intel on Tiger Lake, they said, you know what, we're not going to give you the full graphics performance because we know you're always going to buy a laptop like this, 17 inch. You're going to buy it with discrete graphics. So we're not going to invest, you know, the die space. We're not going to waste space giving you something that you really don't care too much about. The new H series, the i9 12900H and the 12800H and a couple of these others, they're getting the full 96 EUs. So you're basically getting whatever this next generation graphics core is or whatever these next CPUs, you're basically getting these in high-end GPUs or high-end CPUs that previously Intel said you didn't need because you're always going to have a GeForce graphics card, right? Or maybe an ARC this year. So I wonder if that means they may think, hey, this is pretty decent graphics performance. We're going to use it on these parts, and you're going to get it. So,
oh, well, okay.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know, but my money is generally going to be on AMD there. So we'll see.
All right.
AMD is the only one that's come out and said we're twice as fast.
What?
And they've said you're going to really be able to get thin and light gaming integrated graphics at a performance you've never seen before.
Well, okay. Well, that's a lot of information. Thank you for taking me through it. Once again, this will be very laptop model specific, so we're going to get into a lot of laptops. We're going to do a lot of some testing. Be sure to subscribe. Stay locked in for that testing and watch later. Thank you, Gordon. I really appreciate you going through this thought experiment. Now let's wait for the testing and see how it shakes out. So thanks everybody. We'll see you later.